nothing. Never been running to something new. Me, I don't need proof. What? I've been saving up my time so I can spend it all on you. Oh, I need to see you smile. I've forgotten how to do. Alexa, pause. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, Stella's hungry. I have to feed her. Or else she's gonna start getting kind of crazy. You can tell Stella's hungry. Look at her. All right, go be free. So, hello everybody. Everyone asking about my beard. I was shooting, so I had to shave it. No, Simon will not have a mustache. That was a really good joke. I'm sorry guys, I'm very tired. I was up late last night, and I'm in the middle of book club. She did not like that look. So, Fahrenheit 451. Interesting read, am I right? What do you guys think so far? Let me hear your thoughts. Trust me, I was excited for the mustache too. It just didn't happen. Come on, guys, let's talk about the book. Okay, good. Thank you, Thousand Universes. I love the writing. Awesome. Yeah, very interesting. Right? I'm so lost in this book, but that's pretty amazing. Okay? It's difficult to read, but I love it. I don't understand why they're starting fires. Different from other books. At first, I couldn't stand the sentence structure. So many run-on sentences, but I'm getting used to it now. I totally agree. This book felt like a really good combination of 1984 and to me this book reminded me a lot of 1984. The style which is written, the things that they talk about, it seems very similar, which is what I had heard, so I think it's kind of playing, it's keeping true to that. I don't like the fact that there was no chapters. 1984 vibes. Thank you, Camille. Have you read? No, I have not. Sorry guys, I just yawned. I did hear about how they're making it a TV show, and I'm very excited to see how that works. It's going to be on HBO. I'm very excited. Books are so powerful, so it's interesting reading something that refers to that. Yes. So many 1984 parallels. Very intense and interesting. I reread paragraphs so much, I had to absorb everything that was going on. Yes, I need to go reread it, because I feel like I didn't absorb everything. That was crazy. Still not sold. I get the point, but the writing style is annoying to read. The parallels to 1984 are insane. I agree. I actually just found out about this since the book club. Poetic and descriptive. Yes. Why? It's a book about books, and I think I think there's something in that. I haven't read other Ray Bradbury books, so I don't know if that's his style or not. But to me, it seems like it really feeds into this world where books have to be descriptive. Okay, let's keep reading. I've been listening to the audiobook, and I'm glad because sometimes I get lost in the grammar when I read. Wow, that's cool. Especially the part where Beatty... what are we saying? Are we calling him Beatty or Betty? Okay, Sarah Lego, we're going to talk about that. Mildred and Montag become a duo, but not out of Mildred's choice. That was very much forced, but at the same time, this is like to me, this feels like a Winston and Julia from 1984, except this time Julia's unaware that she wants to like rebel and learn about this type of stuff, and Winston's leading the charge instead of the other way around, which I think is cool. It's a quick read, though. I already love Carice, and I hope I will see you again. So interesting. Hey, Alberto. Very tough novel to wrap your head around, but has some great new vocab and teaches you how to maneuver your way through more advanced novels. Okay, I would agree. I would definitely think this is the more... Of the books that we've read, this one is more difficult. For me, I agree as well. In terms of just the style in which it's written and the way that Bradbury has long sentences sometimes. Before we get into more, though, oh my gosh, I fell so behind on the questions. I don't know what to think about the Hound. Is it a dog? Is it like a machine? I don't know if I misunderstood that. But the Hound feels like the thought police. Like, this book is really cool for us to talk about having read 1984. It gives us such a platform to be like, yo, this book, different things to think about, ways to do things. I don't know. I think it's a machine too, right? It seems like this book is presenting a strong warning towards our present problems. So I'm going to talk about that. I don't know what edition of the book you guys have. I have Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury, the 50th anniversary edition. So it has a, it has the foreword. Wow. It has the foreword from by Neil Gaiman. And I want to read a couple things for you guys, if that's cool. But I think it's interesting, this world, I want to talk about this, Verena Lightwood. I still don't get the whole world. Sometimes it's mentioned but not explained, but I guess it's just part of the style Ray Bradbury used. Something about that also feels like it's supposed to be kind of disconnected because they don't have books anymore. They don't have things to connect time, you know? So I think that's one of the things. So the foreword. This is a book of warning. It is a reminder that what we have is valuable, and that sometimes we take what we value for granted. There are 3 phrases that make possible the world of writing about the world of not yet. You can call it science fiction or speculative fiction. You can call it anything you wish. And they are simple phrases. What if? If only. If this goes on. What if gives us change, a departure from our lives. What if aliens landed tomorrow and gave us everything we wanted, but at a price? If only lets us explore the glories and dangers of tomorrow. If only dogs could talk. If only I were invisible. If this goes on is the most predictive of the 3. Although it doesn't try to predict an actual future with all its messy confusion. Instead, if this goes on, fiction takes an element of life today, something clear and obvious, and normally something troubling, and asks, what would happen if that thing, that one thing, became bigger, became all-pervasive, and changed the way we thought and behaved? If this goes on, all communication everywhere will be through text messages or computers, and direct speeches between 2 people without a machine will be outlawed. It's a cautionary question, and it lets us explore cautionary worlds. Fahrenheit 451 is speculative fiction. It's an if this goes on story. Ray Bradbury was writing about his present, which is our past. He was warning us about things. Some of those things are obvious, and some of them half a century later are harder to see. Listen, if someone tells you what a story is about, they're probably right. If they tell you what it is all about, they are very definitely wrong. Any story is about a host of things. It is about an author. It is about a world the author sees and deals with and lives in. It is about the words chosen and the way those words are deployed. That's a big line to me. It is about the words chosen and the way those words are deployed. It is about the story itself and what happens in that story. It is about the people in the story. It is polemic. It is opinion. I just think I just wanted to read that because I thought that was a very interesting thing that he classified all fiction into 3 categories. And then I tried to look at the fiction that we've read, and I was like, which categories do these fall in? What if this goes on, then all of these things. I just wanted to read that to you guys real quick and put that in perspective. Because in it, he talks about if this communication everywhere through text messages or computers and direct speech between 2 people without a machine will be outlawed. We're not far off in the sense that this is direct communication, but then again, like, there's a machine, I'm on a phone. And then there's, I don't know. I thought this was a very interesting book, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I finished the 60 pages we had to read this morning, so it's still like a lot for me. What do you guys think? It's literally outlawing free speech and expression, but what did Beatty say in his speech? He's like, the governments didn't do that. We all did. We all worked towards this. We all created this, and this is what we want. And I thought that was, like, weird. What do you think about the woman burning with her books? Very poetic. It's overwhelming. This book is definitely overwhelming. I would agree. People let free speech die. It's a bit confusing, I think. Then I feel embarrassed. Then I should understand more the first time. No. That's why you can read more. You can always read it again. I think it's okay. There are often times where I read chapters or paragraphs 2 or 3 times before I'm like, oh, okay. But you get better at that as you read more, at really taking information. So don't worry about it. It's part of the process. The other thing that gets me is the wonky sense of time, a bit reminiscent of Slaughterhouse and the past. Isn't it? There's something strange about this world that he's created, with everything's disconnected. I don't know what the rest of the world looks like. He drives a Beetle, but so does Beatty. Is it a fireman thing? They didn't explain it. And I'm not going to lie, I thought Clarissa wasn't real for a bit. I thought it was like a ghost or something of someone he burned. Until I realized, no, she was a real person. And then I was like, but there's a little bit like of a laxed world in this book. In the sense that, like, in 1984, the thought police were everywhere. And they were ever present. They haven't at all explained how they figure out if you have books or any of that. And they haven't at all explained how everyone's connected and how people can, like, get along. I don't know. It's weird. Oh, my gosh. I ran behind. I think their world is just really empty. There's no real human connection, and books make people feel connected, which is why the woman burned. She didn't want to let the connection go. I totally agree with that. That's really well said. The idea of being arrested for driving too slowly or being a pedestrian, not being able to do things that allow us to appreciate the world outside, we can only experience what they want us to experience. This is a very common theme that we've seen now in books that speak of a dystopian future, a dystopian world in which a lot of our rights are taken. The theme that I'm seeing now is this idea where not only are the rights being taken, but the things that will allow us any sense of freedom, freedom of expression, reading, freedom of ideas and thought, all taken away. But the interesting thing is, in 1984, it was very clear that the party was doing it. The party was imposing these rules, and that the society had agreed to live with these rules. Whereas in Fahrenheit 451, it feels as though, yeah, there's a reigning entity that enforces these rules. But I'm sorry, guys, I'm tired today. But it was the people that are really enforcing and holding on to this. And Beatty's warning, I think, is really interesting. I'm very excited to see where that goes. I love cake. Sorry, I need to say hi. You know how to get my attention. What do I think about the captain speech? The captain speech. Please elaborate that. I don't remember that right now. Please fill me in. I can't remember. I love how Montag realized that there's definitely something in books that caused the old lady to die for her books. I think she preferred to die than live in a knowledge-deprived world. Well, think about this. To me, it was already setting the tone that it was very, unlike 1984, where Winston was made to feel completely isolated and alone, without the ability to even confront other people and say, hey, are you thinking this shit is crazy just like I'm thinking this shit is crazy? It's almost like, yeah, this shit's crazy, but we're not going to talk about it. Think about it. The two guys that came and smoked cigarettes and had their, they stumped her stomach and changed her blood. They were like, yeah, we do this 10 times a night. It's not a big deal. She'll be fine. Not even doctors. It's like everyone knows this happened. And he brings it up. He's like, hey, honey, you took a whole bottle of pills last night. And she's like, oh, I don't even remember doing that. Oh, my God. And he's like, oh. It's like this world knows what's going on, but no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to say anything. And I think that's such an interesting comment on a world without books. I forgot who said it earlier in the live, but that idea that this connection is no longer allowed, and anything that allows this connection to happen is also outlawed. It is deep. I heard once that a long time ago houses used to burn by accident. They didn't need firemen to stop the flames. And okay, so Angelica Inc. Don't you get sad when Clarissa died? I didn't. In my mind, I was like, is she really dead? Did she really die? She just randomly got hit by a car and they don't tell you anything about it? It's just mentioned in passing by his wife? Or is there something deeper there? To me, I don't know why. I feel like there's something deeper there. Like, we're going to find out she was really taken. But then Beatty admits that her family was, like, on his list forever. So I'm not sure where that's going. I'm excited to see. I really liked how Bradbury placed attention on imagination that is now, in the story, lost and replaced by television. The same imagination that instead Clarissa has kept. Ooh. Good quote. Good comment. I like that. But I think it's because the government wants them equal, literally. They have the same houses, cars, same knowledge, and everything. This is why they burn books. They want everyone equal. But the problem is, you can't defend against individuality. That's humanity. With 1984, the descriptions you made have an exact picture in your head of everything looks like and how it works. While Fahrenheit 451, it's very wishy-washy. It's very like, you're in this world, it almost feels like you're in a video game or something. It's not quite tangible. 1984 was extremely tangible. I felt like you were, in Winston's tiny little apartment next to the telescreen. You felt like you were locked in the ministry of love. They're not even naming places, the firehouse, then it jumps time to his house, then it jumps time to him walking down the street with Clarissa. He never creates a world. I don't know why I'm like aggressive with this book, but I'm into it. There's something about it that reading it, I think, is an act of rebellion. Because it's like it's a book about books not wanting to be read, but you're reading it. So there's this idea that I feel like it feels like a fight. What do you guys think about that? I'm sorry, guys. I jumped behind the questions again, so I'm going all the way to the bottom. Sorry if I missed the comments. Right? Thank you, Niner Girl. I wonder how we'd feel about this book if we hadn't read 1984 first. But it's also interesting, like, how can we look at this book? When we finish, we're going to be able to look back and be like, wow, they're similar like this. What would it be like if we read it the other way? So we have that idea. I think they kidnapped Clarice, too. I think it's unclear because the population itself isn't aware. Winston was self-aware, but Montag still on his journey of questioning his world. Yo, Kenzie, that's awesome. But do you think that's also a tool used by the writer? This unclear world, creating this unclear population, so everything's going to be slightly unclear. I think it was a device. Page 28 really stuck me because it's so true. I'm going to read parts of Very Meta, a book about the power of books, right? It's freaking weird. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit of 28 because someone mentioned it. Is that okay with you guys? Well, what was didn't Montag say that, or Beatty talked about it? Someone talked about how books are passing on a culture as well. So I'm going to read part of page 28. I don't know if we have the same book, so if it's not the same page, please let me know. Do you know I'm responsible? I was spanked when I needed it years ago, and I do all the shopping and house cleaning by hand. But most of all, she said, I like to watch people. Sometimes I ride the subway all day long and look at them and listen to them. I just want to figure out who they are and what they want, where they're going. Sometimes I even go to fun parks and ride in the jet cars when they race on the edge of town at midnight. And the police don't care as long as you're insured. As long as they're insured. What does that mean, by the way? I was just curious. As long as they're insured. As long as everyone has 10,000 insurance, everyone's happy. Sometimes I sneak around and listen in subways, or I listen to soda fountains, and do you know what? What? People don't talk about anything. Oh, they must. No, not anything. They name a lot of cars or clothes or swimming pools mostly and say how swell. But they all say the same things and nobody says anything different from anyone else. And most of the time in the cafes, they have the joke boxes on and the same jokes most of the time, or the musical wall lit and all the colored patterns running up and down, but it's only color and all abstract. And at the museums, all abstract. That's all there is now. My uncle says it was different once. A long time back, sometimes pictures said things or even showed people. Your uncle must be a remarkable man. He is. He certainly is. Well, I gotta be going. Goodbye, Mr. Montag. Goodbye. Goodbye. What do you guys think about that? Right? The hound targeted... Oh! There's one more... Okay, Kenzie Courtenay, I have to say you're killing it today. Loving what you bring into the table. Thank you. I want to talk about this one quote at the end of the book. Ready? I'm going to read, not the end of the book, but the end of the introduction. Now, let me know what you guys think. I read the introduction to every book before I read the book. Sometimes I get mad at the introduction because it reveals things in the book that I didn't want to know until I was ready to know them. So, do you guys want me to read this or not? Because it illuminates something that the writer talks about at the end of the book. But I think it'd be interesting entering the book with this perspective. So if you guys want me to read it, let me know. If not, we'll go back to talking other things. Yes? It's not a spoiler, but it's an interesting thing because we were talking about Clarissa, and this is in the foreword of the book, the introduction, so technically you're supposed to read it before. Right? Why would they call it an introduction and then spoil the book? I get so mad at books when that happens. Alright, I'm going to read this last note. As a final note, in these days when we worry and we argue about whether ebooks are real books, I love how broad Ray Bradbury's definition of a book is at the end. I don't know if I want to keep reading this now. Because I don't know if I want to talk about this perspective. To me, it's just interesting to be like, whoa. So I'm looking at the book from this perspective, but I don't want to muddy the way you look at it. Alright, I'm going to say it anyway, and if you guys get mad at me, I'm sorry, we won't do it again. I love how broad Ray Bradbury's definition of a book is at the end, when he points out that we should not judge our books by their covers, and that some books exist between covers that are perfectly people-shaped. What do you guys think about that? I'll read it one more time. As a final note, in these days when we worry and we argue about whether ebooks are real books, I love how broad Ray Bradbury's definition of a book is at the end, when he points out that we should not judge our books by their covers, and that some books exist in between covers that are perfectly people-shaped. Perfectly people-shaped. This whole book is a love letter to books and intelligence, especially when Beatty kind of shits on intelligence. I mean, I'm tired, guys. I'm sorry. I cursed like 3 times. Beatty talks about that exact thing. People's stories are like books. So when you, to me, reading Clarissa, I was like, she's like a book, because it's the person she's literally a book to Montag. Like, he meets her and she opens his world and kind of changes perspective, and now he can no longer look at things the same way. Kind of like when we read 1984, I can no longer look at cell phones the same way. To me, I carry around a little telescreen, and it's a choice I make every day, which is crazy. So, like, she changed his world, and then she disappears, which is part of what happens in this book. I don't know. I thought it was cool. I think Beatty kidnapped Clarice. Clarice made Montag question about that society, and Beatty said that Montag is very important and maybe he don't want to lose him, and that's why he kidnapped Clarice. Well, there's that idea, like, not many people are firefighters, right? Like, the way that Clarice first talked to him was like, yo, you're a firefighter? I don't like reading that scene now, so I had to read it like 2 or 3 times to make sure I got like each character's intonation the way I think it was meant to be read. But all right, we have another read request. Clarissa conversation that I like, page 35. Let's take a look. I know you love me, I don't approve what you don't do. I'm going to read this page, if that's okay. Exactly, she was another book burning. So someone commented that the lady burning with her books was also like a book burning on top of a book burning. There's a lot of like levels here, and this book is fascinating. I'm going to read page 35 real quick, but this book is fascinating. Okay. Montag had done nothing. His hand had done it all. His hand, with a brain of its own, with a conscience and a curiosity in each trembling finger, had turned thief. Now it plunged the book back under his arm and pressed it tight to sweating armpit. Rushed out empty with the magician's flourish. Look here, innocent, look! I didn't do it. I love that part. He gazed, shaken at the white hand. He held it way out, as if it were farsighted. As if he were farsighted. He held it close, as if he were blind. Montag, he jerked about. Don't you stand there, idiot! The books lay like great mounds of fishes left to dry. The men danced and slipped and fell over them. Tiles glittered their golden eyes, falling, gone. Kerosene! They pumped the cold fluid from the numeral 451 tanks strapped to their shoulders. They coated each book. They pumped rooms full of it. They hurried downstairs, Montag staggering after them in the kerosene fumes. Come on, woman! The woman knelt among her books, touching the drenched leather and cardboard, reading the gilt titles with her fingers while her eyes accused Montag. You can't ever have my books, she said. You know the law, said Beatty. Where's your common sense? None of these books agree with each other. You've been locked up here for years with a regular damned Tower of Babel. Snap out of it. The people in these books never lived. Come on now. She shook her head. I don't know. Tower of Babel's an interesting thing. Whoa! Okay, Electra Hope. Dope thing you just said. Hope dope with a dope quote. Sorry. I feel like Guy is also a book, if you're going on the forward. He's a fireman, but as Clarissa said, he isn't like the others. There's more to him. Clarisse was willing to open that book. Judge not people by their covers. I think that's amazing. Beatty mentioned how the term intellectual became the swear word it deserved to be, and it made me think, because in our world we praise intellectuals. Do we, though? Hannah Cabana, I think we do. I don't know if we praise intellectuals. We when they say things we like to hear, we agree with them, and when they don't, we put them down, I think. Also, there's this whole thing happening in the United States where there's, I think, the idea of being an intellectual or not, it creates a disparity amongst people, because then people that feel that they don't qualify for that category get very aggressive with people that feel that they do. They're like, oh, you think you're better than us because you're intellectual. You're like, no, things are different. I think you have to be careful with that. And I think it's fascinating that quote happened then, when right now you have many of the people in certain parties in the United States, certain political parties, feigning at Hollywood intellectuals or Hollywood elites or the intellectual liberals or whatever. It's being thrown around as almost an insult again, which I think is interesting. I like the metaphor, books equals people. Don't judge covers, everyone has a story. I agree 100%. Yo entiendo, pero nada para escribir. ¿Cuál es el nombre del libro? El nombre es Fahrenheit 451. Deberías leerlo, es muy interesante. Para mí es muy parecido a 1984, 1984. Perdóname para todos que no hablan en inglés o no pueden escribir en inglés. Si quieren preguntar cosas o algo así, pregúntame en español aquí en el live y yo puedo responder en inglés. Y si me dices, por favor, responde en español también, yo puedo decir las dos cosas en inglés y después en español. Entonces sigue preguntando cosas, por favor. A mí me encanta que ustedes están acá. I don't judge the book. No one should. People are more than what they look like. Yes. Nerds are intellectuals, yet we put them down using nerds as a derogatory term. We do. Is Mildred a real person? I would say yes. I would definitely say yes, that Mildred is. Because, she's there, and then even Beatty asks her to turn down whatever's happening. Oh, can we talk about that? The three-walled room? I honestly think that's a metaphor for television. Oh, so I need to read something else so you guys have an understanding of, there's one thing from the introduction again. Ready? So this is so that we get this perspective of why I think the three-walled room is interesting. So here we go. It says, more than half a century has passed since 1953. In America, in 1953, the comparatively recent medium of radio was already severely on the wane. Its reign had lasted about 30 years, but now the exciting new medium of television had come into ascendancy, and the dramas and comedies of radio were either ending for good or reinventing themselves with a visual track on the idiot box. The news channels in America warned of juvenile delinquents, teenagers in cars who drove dangerously and lived for kicks. The Cold War was going on, a war between Russia and its allies and America and its allies, in which nobody dropped bombs or fired bullets, because a dropped bomb could tip the world into a third nuclear war. A third world war, a nuclear war, from which it would never return. The Senate was holding hearings to root out hidden communists and taking steps to stamp out comic books, and whole families were gathering around television in the evenings. The joke in the 1950s went that in the old days you could tell who was home by seeing if the lights were on, by seeing if the lights were off. The televisions were small and the pictures were in black and white, and you needed to turn the lights off in order to get a good picture. If this goes on, thought Ray Bradbury, nobody will read books anymore. And Fahrenheit 451 began. He had written a short story once called The Pedestrian, about a man who's incarcerated by the police after he stopped simply for walking. That story became part of the world he was building, and 17-year-old Clarissa McClellan becomes a pedestrian in a world where nobody walks. What if firemen burned down houses instead of saving them? Bradbury thought. And now he had his way into the story. He had a fireman named Guy Montague who saved a book from the flames instead of burning it. If only books could be saved, he thought. If you destroy all the physical books, how can you still save them? So, in the context of what was happening in this world, it was a very scary world to be a part of. World War II had just happened. We'd seen the rise of... Wait, but this wasn't written in 1953. The book was written in like the 1950s. So, the world was in this crazy time. It was right after World War I. The world just finished World War II. I was like, that didn't sound right. I have to wake up. I need coffee. All of this stuff was going on. The Cold War started right at the end of the World War II ended. The Cold War started that same day. So this started happening. McCarthyism was going on. People were being rooted out, and they were calling people red and calling them communists. And it was the worst thing you could possibly be was a communist. And it was this thing that if there was inkling, people would go rat on their neighbors. There was a whole thing in Hollywood where they pulled out actors and writers and different people that were communists. And then different actors and writers either fessed up and said, yeah, and here are other communists, or they didn't. It was a fascinating time, and as you can see, based on this book that was written at this time, and 1984, written at a similar time, you can see the parallel of paranoia that was going on in this world, this period of time. Also a time when people are expected to act a certain way in society. It was in the 50s that I think started to break. People are always, don't get me wrong, that's still a thing in society, but I think that was when these rebellion movements started to kind of happen. Oh, I'm going to nap so hard later. It's going to be great. You know what? Guys, we had a great recommendation from our good friend about Gaia, and she says, he or she, I'm sorry, I can't tell, based on a little picture. He or she says, Alberto, I think it's time for some quotes. So I would absolutely agree. Let's talk about quotes. Also, can someone give me a time check? How much time do we have left? Clarissa is the embodiment of how to save a book in a world where all books are destroyed. Knowledge can only be destroyed when it's no longer passed down or shared. Her family shared their knowledge. Right? But if you go back to 1984, that oral history, they weren't even allowed to say the minute it was changed. The minute it was changed, new world. He who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the future controls the past. He who controls the past controls the present. He who controls the present controls the future. There we go. 15, 20 minutes. Thank you, Nana Girl. There must be something in books, something we can't imagine, to make a woman stay burning in a burning house. There must be something there. You don't stay for nothing. Totally agree. So let's hear some quotes. Let's read some. Everyone, let's post quotes. I'm going to look for some of my faves. Ooh. Woo! Okay. Quote on page 49. It's not just the woman that died. Page 49. It's not just the woman that died. Last night, I thought about all that kerosene I've used in the past 10 years, and I thought about books. And for the first time, I realized that a man was behind each one of the books. A man had to think them up. A man had to take a long time to put them down on paper, and I'd never even thought that before. He got out of bed. It took some man a lifetime, maybe, to put some of his thoughts down, looking around at the world and life, and then I come along in 2 minutes, and boom, it's all over. Craziness. I think it'd be better if it said a person. A person had to think them up. A person had to take a long time and put them down on paper. It took some person. Not just men write books. But interesting. Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit. Do you ever read the books you burn? He laughed. That's against the law. Oh, of course. Thank you so much for bringing... Who said that quote? I think it was you, Nicole. That was awesome. Oh, no, Verena Lightwood. Verena Lightwood. That was awesome quote. Loved that quote. No, it's against the law. How many things don't we do without... all of these books are making us... One of the themes I really want to bring to light in these books is, like, think for yourself. No matter what I tell you, the world tells you, have your own opinions. Discover for yourself. Learn for yourself. Read for yourself. Really develop what you think about the world, and that will, help you become who you are. An artist, I think every person alive is an artist, whether or not they realize it. And I think an artist is only as good as their opinions that they've formed for themselves. He wore his happiness like a mask, and the girl had run across the lawn with the mask, and there was no way of going to knock on her door and ask for it back. Love that. We stand against the small tide of those who want to make everyone unhappy with conflicting theory and thought. We stand against the small tide of those who want to make everyone unhappy with conflicting theory and thought. Think about that. Amazing quote. Clarissa, I'm antisocial, they say. I don't mix. It's so strange. I'm very social indeed. It all depends on what you mean by social, doesn't it? They fell like slaughtered birds, and the woman stood below like a small girl among the bodies. Whew. The trees overheard made a great sound of letting down their dry rain. No, that, Mary Kate Nick. I agree. That image was very powerful. Have you guys ever seen the movie Hero? It's like a really cool kung fu film. There's one scene where there's a fight between these two women in this forest, and these trees are falling. And reading that's the image I got, were these trees. Also, remember the quote where he talks about the forest with no trees, just the silhouettes of where they used to be. I love that. We need not to be alone. We need to be really bothered once in a while. How long is it since you were really bothered about something important, about something real? La Presta Mariana, I would agree, because that is an amazing quote, because that means I think you're alive. I forgot who it was. Oh, it was recently. There's the movie Mother that came out with Darren Aronofsky. If you haven't seen it, it's fascinating. It's disturbing, but it's amazing. I saw it twice in theaters, and I want to see it again. I'm going to buy it when it comes out so I can watch it a lot. It's amazing. And if Diego comes on live one day, maybe we'll have a talk about it. But the response to that film was very this or that, black and white. Either they hated it or they loved it. Critics hated it. Some critics loved it. It was something, and he's like, I don't care if you hated it or you loved it. I care if you didn't feel anything. So that's something I should think about. When Montauk says that he would not cry if Mildred died, reminded me when Winston tried to push down his wife. No, there are so many parallels in this book, and I wonder what it is about the relationships that they build and things like that are active tools for us to make to learn these things. All right, well, Leah, thank you for joining. Have a good family dinner. So I recently read a Tumblr post about Harry Potter. And everyone talks about how Harry Potter was amazing because... The Tumblr post says this. I'm paraphrasing. It says, like, everyone talks about how Harry Potter is amazing because it shows you about friendship and all this. And yeah, it does that. I'm not going to take that away, but it does so much more. It teaches you that sometimes the people in power aren't the people with your best interest in mind. It shows you that sometimes bad things happen to good people. It shows you that sometimes you have to take it upon yourself to rise against what's expected, a regime or a government, and say, no, this is what's actually right, and then to fight for it, to be a patriot. In The Punisher, in the TV show The Punisher, there's something that one of the actors says, where he's like, if you put George Washington in the United States today, and John Adams and Paul Revere and all these men in the United States today, they'd be considered terrorists. Because of the way they tried to change what they thought was no longer right. And while it's a dangerous, there's a danger in that idea. There's also this brilliance. It's like, wow, what is a patriot? Is a patriot someone who just agrees, or is it someone who always requires and asks more of their country? Says, look, yeah, we're doing great, but we can do so much better. I don't know. It's a question I'm going to leave you guys with. I miss Diego too. We're drowning in information but starved for knowledge. Val86, give me the air fire. That's a cool quote. The dandelion part, something so simple, made Montag question himself. Alberto, por favor, una técnica para aprenderme un libreto. Me urge. It took some man a lifetime maybe to put some of his own thoughts down, looking around at the world as in life. And I came along in 2 minutes and boom, it's all gone. Oh God, we only have like 5 minutes left. Okay. Yes, guys, I am sorry that I haven't shared more titles yet. I'm still actually in the basis of picking. So next week I will have like 2 or 3 more titles so everyone can get the books ahead of time. I am sorry, but we have to start. 15 minutes left, not 5? Give me 1 second. 1 second. Yeah, we have like 13 minutes left. So let's do this. Let's start to wind down. And let's start to wind down, and I'm gonna read you guys a few things real quick. We're gonna talk about what we're reading next for the next requirement or whatever, and we'll move forward from there. So let's read 2. We're gonna read part 2 for Saturday. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote that Jesus, Socrates, Copernicus were misunderstood. To be great is to be misunderstood. It's just fascinating to me talking about that quote when you look at the history of famous artists, writers. Many a time they were not fully accepted until they're dead, until people can now reflect on their work and be like, wow, they were actually brilliant. I just had an idea, and I think we're going to do it. We're going to read, after Catch-22, we're going to bring in another Kurt Vonnegut book because I want to read it. Is that okay with you guys? If we bring another Kurt Vonnegut book? Because I thought about it, and with what we're talking about, I think this would be a cool thing to have. Are you guys cool with reading more Vonnegut? About guy says yes, thank you. Indigo in my says yes. Yes, which one? Okay. Yep, his books are amazing. All right, so everyone, you can start looking. After Catch-22, we're going to read Breakfast of Champions. Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut. It was on the list that I was thinking about, but then what we just talked about, writers, artists, appreciation, all of these things, and it happens in these books. So we're going to, it's about an author, Breakfast of Champions. So we're going to go with that. So you guys know, Breakfast of Champions was the first Kurt Vonnegut book I'd ever read. So, and it was amazing. One of the first books that actually my buddy Dave recommended me. And actually, if any of you guys live in Northern Virginia, you should go check out my buddy Dave's restaurant. It's called Bebop. It's a Korean-Mexican place. So it's like Korean barbecue, but in like tacos and burritos. I'm just giving them a pitch right now. I haven't talked to them in a bit, but if you live around there, you should go, and the next week let me know how it is. I've never been. But it's a restaurant. Dave recommended me that book, and Dave actually really helped me to start really enjoy reading. So I should thank Dave for this book club. So let's try to read part 2, all of part 2. Yes, Angelic Inc. Thank you. So there's Bra Rosende website, which I think is albertorosendebrazil.com. Is that right? That website has has the PDFs in certain languages, and then our amazing book club member Rita also created Rosende Reads PDFs on Twitter, so you guys can go on Twitter, and she has the PDFs there as well. I don't know what languages are available right now, but they're there, so it's a really good idea to check it out. So we'll read part 2 by Saturday at noon. I need to go eat breakfast and get coffee, and I have to feed Stella. No way, there's a Goodreads. Guys, I know a few of you have asked me about a Goodreads. I've tried it. It's not my favorite medium. This works better for me, so that's why I like this. I think Goodreads is amazing, and I think if you guys have one, continue, and maybe I'll update mine. But, so you know, I like this medium very, very much. But Goodreads, super cool. Thank you for making that. So I do want to talk a little bit about, just like so you guys know, I had my first day on set for season 3 yesterday. It was really fun. I only worked with like 2 other actors the whole day, which was cool. I was in all day. And season 3 is just gonna be epic. We have so many surprises coming for you guys. It's gonna be, I don't know. I wonder how long these secrets are gonna be able to stay in because they're so cool. Not for me. I'm a vault. But, you know, other things. How was it working with Chai? Chai is one of the most beautiful human beings I have ever met, inside and out. He's literally an absolute sweetheart, and he's just the nicest person. And I know, Stella. I know. Awesome actor. Total bro. I love Chai. He's great. We have a lot of fun together in season 3, and you know, cool. I did say I was going to post some Polaroids at 3A, but unfortunately, a lot of them would be spoilerful, so I haven't taken any. Like, I couldn't even talk about who was on set this week. I couldn't talk about what's happening, you know, so I can't really post anything. Yes, it was Chai that Alicia covered his face on the pic in Halloween. And for all of you Sizzy shippers, just, don't worry. Wow, my hair looks weird. Just don't worry about it. Are you excited about the bloopers? Yes and no. There was a very embarrassing blooper that was taken of me yesterday. So, I'm excited, but I didn't realize they were filming, and I was dancing, and then they were like, and that'll be great. And I was like, oh, you guys were filming that. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, oh. Alberto's bloopers. Oh, God. All right, guys. Well, so we know we have to read part 2 by noon on Saturday next week. We know that we have Catch-22 and then Breakfast of Champions, which I'm excited to read again with you guys. I have to make moves, but thank you all so much for being here again. I'm loving this book. And I'm very excited to see, you know, I'm very excited to see where it goes. 12 p.m. Saturday, you know that's the time, guys. Believe it or not, that's the time it's going to be. That's just what it is. So, if you're tired like me, you wake up and you do it. If you're not tired, then you have a great time. You have some coffee and breakfast. I do need to run next week. Thank you, Camille. Well, guys, I'm going to let you guys go. Have a great Saturday. Have a great weekend. Keep being forces of positive change in the world. Keep pushing yourselves to be better. Keep asking questions. Keep being curious. There's one thing I do want to talk about real quick. Sorry, I didn't bring it up. There's something in the book that Beatty talks about that to me was like the death of curiosity. There's a teacher I had once who described talent as curiosity. He's like, I don't know what talent is, but I can define it. I define it as curiosity. People that are curious. So keep being curious. Keep asking questions. Keep checking it out. We'll talk more about that next week. Goodbye, guys. Keep reading. See you next week.